Hey y'all, hi. It's time for another episode of New Makeup Hot Takes, and there are so many things on which I want to comment today. I think it's gonna have to be like a true hot takes video where the takes are sort of thick and fast. It's just, I just have one little thing to say about it, you know? And a lot of times I scroll through and I'm like, I have nothing to say about any of this, yawn. And then I have to dredge up some sort of TED talk about like one thing or one aspect of beauty, but not so today. It's going to be a feast. I'm going to have to keep a tight rein on myself to keep this video from being 2 hours long. And in terms of how good or suspect the new releases are, it's sort of all over the map. There are a bunch of things here that allure me for one reason or another. But as you know, if you've been here before, if you watch my channel, I try not to promote overspending. I try not to overspend on beauty, and I try to foster in myself kind of a healthy detachment from new releases. So I'm usually looking for a reason to not buy something or to, you know, take a step back from like the first flush of excitement about a new release, even if it's something that's exciting. So that'll be the approach. And if you are new here and you find yourself enjoying that, I hope you'll subscribe. Now, let's go ahead and get into the meat of the video. New makeup, hot takes. New makeup, hot takes. All right, first up, and we're going in reverse chronological order, and Joe said he will edit me to the side, so I don't have to move to the side, which is good because the way the lights are, when I move to the side, it changes the lighting and it's not quite right. It's like a little overexposed, and I've long lamented how overexposed I look in New Makeup Hot Takes, but apparently we can fix it in post. So from here, first up, there is a shade extension of the Le Monster crayon. The lip crayon from HAUS Labs. And this is the kind of thing that I wouldn't ordinarily talk about in New Makeup Hot Takes, because it's just like a random product from a random brand, and it's just a shade extension of it. But when I reviewed HAUS Labs, I distinctly remember really loving this product. But I also distinctly remember that the shade range didn't include very many neutrals and shades of nude. And so I ended up choosing, I think, a red. And I remember either saying exactly this out loud or something like this. I'm not gonna keep it because I have other red lipsticks that I like, and so it's just another red. But if it were in a more nuanced nude or neutral for me, it was like the closest thing they had was some sort of pink. But I was like, if they had a brown, if they had a beige or a beigey pink or something like that, this is a product I would get a lot of use out of. And just the only reason that I didn't get a lot of use out of the one that I chose for the review is that it was red. And if I'm gonna wear a red, you know, it's gonna be Lisa Eldridge Velvet Dragon or one of the Merit lipsticks. So, you know, I guess Lady Gaga was watching my video. I guess Joanne, some late night scrolling, came across that review and she was like, you know what, Hannah Louise Poston, you're right. I'm gonna do a shade extension. All of these shades look beautiful. You know, they kind of tempt me. But just because I, in the past, thought that this would be a good choice, like a good enhancement for HAUS Labs, just because I had that thought and then it did come about, doesn't mean that I need to rush out and buy it. I feel like the next time I'm in a Sephora and I see these shades, swatch them, sort of get a sense in real life of the undertones. If there's one that seems just super perfect, because I know that I really like the formula, I could see myself maybe buying it. But I'm not gonna rush out and like order all 5 of them or 4 of them just because of that past connection. I'm happy to see it, but for my part, I'll wait. Next up, Tarte Shape Tape Radiant. So I have just like a basic hot take on this, which is, one, this is smart. I just feel like Tarte has this iconic, like historical concealer, the historical concealer, Tarte Shape Tape, you know, but it's very, very full coverage. And that isn't really the thing right now. So it makes total sense for Tarte to come out with a less full coverage, kind of radiant, light touch version of Shape Tape. So my first reaction is, yeah, this makes total sense. And then my second reaction is, but way too late. Like, it seems like they could have gotten the clue, like the idea for this 4 or 3 years ago and executed on it in a shorter amount of time. Like, maybe they did decide to do this when the worms started turning with concealer coverage popularity. And then it took 2 years to develop, and so now they're releasing it. But I just feel like they should have lit a little fire under that, you know what I mean? It just feels like the exact right thing for Tarte to be doing, but like a year and a half too late for it to really get its teeth in any of us. Okay, Guerlain with the brown, with this beautiful brown collection for spring, summer. I live for this, especially the lip colors. Look at those lip colors. It's not just that they're brown, because lots of brands, especially this kind of brand, a lot of them come out with brown makeup. It's like the neutral, the timeless neutral, but the browns don't usually have these kind of mucky undertones, like slightly gray or slightly grayish, or pinks that have a strong brownish gray undertone rather than being like browns that have a really warm. That's usually what it is, especially with lips. And these palettes each have basically an orange eyeshadow in them, so they are leaning warm, but I'm so happy to see this beautiful range of nudie browns. I mean, makes me want to get myself a Guerlain lipstick, which is something that I don't think I've ever considered before. Oh, it's a fall, it says it's a fall collection. I was feeling like I was like browns for spring, groundbreaking, but it's actually browns for fall. So not as counterculturally thrilling as I thought initially, but you know, still a good choice in terms of the shade curation. ColourPop comes out with so much stuff that I definitely don't mention every collection that they launch and everything that's on Trend Mood 1, which is what I use as a resource for these videos. It's an Instagram account that posts about new makeup releases. But I did think that I would mention today the Lavender collection. It's the newest, the most recent thing that ColourPop has launched that's currently up on Trend Mood as I'm filming this. Because I remember the last time I filmed New Makeup Hot Takes, Lawless Beauty, I mentioned them because they've only ever done neutrals like pinks and browns. They launched a lavender collection. Now ColourPop is launching a full-on lavender collection, which interests me a little bit more even than the Lawless one, because you know, there's that lavender that's really just a shade of pink, like a shade of pink that has a lot of purple mixed into it, sort of like that fluoro purpley pink. That's one interpretation of lavender, and that's the direction in which Lawless went. ColourPop has definitely gone much deeper into that pastel bluish purple, which that's real lavender to me. Like that's what I think of when I think of lavender. And I really like their interpretation. Again, it doesn't make me want to rush out and buy a bunch of stuff at ColourPop, but I think it's pretty. And I more just brought it up to be like, is lavender about to trend? Like, is lavender the color of the spring, summer? Like, is that about to be everywhere? Because some little signs point to yes. All right, here we have something that has got me in the gut. NARS, come for my wig again. After all of these years, in the early years, I was a real NARS girl. I just could not resist NARS. I actually remember during my no-buy year in 2018, the first piece of makeup to truly tempt me, like to really hurt, the first thing that was released where it really hurt that I was like on a no-buy and I was absolutely not going to buy it was NARS. There was a long period of time there where it was probably the brand that came the closest to my ideal for makeup. And then they went through a phase of just releasing the same thing over and over again. It was all just like orgasm stuff and orgasm derived stuff, really basic color stories and cheek palettes and eye palettes, and they kind of started losing me. But now this thing that really makes me want to buy it, it is the Afterglow Liquid Blush, a lightweight skincare infused liquid blush, and the colors just look beautiful. This looks, based on these jelly-like swatches, this looks like the NARS version of a serum blush. Like it looks like one of those skincare hybrid blushes, but the listing, or at least the Trend Mood posting, says buildable and transfer resistant, which makes me think that it does dry down or become one with the skin, and I'm very curious about it. If my only relationship with makeup was that of a consumer, I would probably talk myself out of rushing out and buying this because of the doe foot applicator. For a liquid blush, I don't know. There's something about that. It's a little hard to get a sense from these images of how big the little container is, but it does seem like with that doe foot, it could read as fiddly in real life. So that would give me a little bit of pause, and that would be enough for me to be like, I'm going to cool my jets. I'm not going to buy one literally the instant it launches. As a reviewer of makeup, though, this is like another thing in a long list of things that NARS has released over the past, I would say maybe 6 months to a year, but more like the last 6 to 8 months, that has intrigued me. It's like they're starting to pique my interest again. They're starting to reel me back in. It's been a really long time since I bought or reviewed anything from NARS, like a really, really long time. And I'm starting to wonder if I should do a video like revisiting NARS, like checking in on the things that they've created since the last time I was a NARS customer and seeing if anything has changed, seeing how I feel about it now, given that I have so much more experience testing and reviewing makeup than than I did back when I was obsessed with the brand. So for me, this product might go on that list. It might be the thing that tips the scales and causes me to make that video. But overall, I feel like we as consumers can kind of just wait and see what this turns out to be like in person. I feel like that's the thing. Like, what does it really look and feel like in person? Both the formula and the packaging. Okay, here's another thing that's got me as a reviewer, kind of got me by the nape of the neck because it's Gucci. And you know, I've reviewed a lot of Gucci makeup. With the exception of the foundation products, I'm a resource when it comes to Gucci makeup. And I've gotten tagged a lot. I've gotten a lot of tags and a lot of DMs about this product since it was announced. The Gucci liquid face highlighter. It looks so beautiful. The packaging, the models, a natural, radiant, healthy looking glow. And you know, I'm full of questions. Like with a formula like this that is so liquidy and it's in a dropper. I feel like the question is, does it Let's boil down the question. When you boil down the question is it makeup or is it just oil with a bunch of shiny particles floating in it? Like, does it adhere to the face and kind of dry down or mix with your makeup or become one with your skin? Does it actually enhance the skin, or is it just a vial of oil with a bunch of little shiny mica particles floating in it? I could review it and tell you. I may do that. I've already spent my review budget for April, but we're about to click over into May. So this is like top of the list of things that I might review in May. But again, if that wasn't part of my job, I would be waiting for the reviews to find out, because I feel like we got like a 50-50 chance of this just being a very expensive vial of shiny oil. Speaking of very expensive things, here's my hot take on the Lisa Eldridge skincare launch. So Lisa Eldridge has launched, I think, just two skincare products, some cleansing cloths, like cleansing and exfoliating cloths. So the skincare products are the Skin Enhancing Treatment Cleanser, basically a cleanser, a balm cleanser, and the Skin and Makeup Enhancing Mist. The cleanser, the balm cleanser, is $50 and the mist is $42. It's $49, $42. But you know, for all intents and purposes, $50 and a little more than $40. That, to me, for skincare, it's just really expensive. And I know that her makeup is not inexpensive. You know, it's a luxury line, luxury pricing. So you're paying, what is it, something like in the $30 range for a lipstick? Was it even in the $60 range for palettes? Yeah, lipsticks are $38, so $40 basically. And yeah, eyeshadow palette $62. So that's really luxury pricing. So you might think like the cleanser's $50 and the eyeshadow palette $60 and the lipstick's $40. Like that's all around the same kind of price point. So it totally makes sense and it fits with her brand and it fits with her general pricing. But an eyeshadow palette lasts so much longer than one bottle of cleanser. A lipstick lasts so much longer. Like even if it's your only lipstick and your only eyeshadow palette, which for most of us it's not, but even if it were and you're using it absolutely every day, you're still gonna get like months, if not years more of wear out of that makeup than you're going to get out of a bottle of cleanser that you're using every day. So to me, a $50 cleanser and let's say a $50 eyeshadow palette, even though you're paying the same amount of money to get your hands on each one of those, in that case, the cleanser to me is way, way, way more expensive than the eyeshadow palette because of its use value, its price per use. So I guess in theory, I understand why these things are priced the way that they are, but as a consumer who sometimes buys luxury makeup and appreciates it, as a reviewer who sometimes reviews pricey makeup, I feel like a piece of Lisa Eldridge makeup once in a while is something that makes sense for me, like is within my realm. And I actually have purchased some of the lipsticks with my own money from time to time, like using my own budget. I wouldn't buy a lot of them with my own budget because it would add up, but it feels okay to me. However, these skincare products feel way too expensive for me. Like they feel too expensive for me to buy with my budget to use, and they feel too expensive for me to even consider reviewing. It's just like for skincare, it just feels like a lot. And that's my hot take. Ooh, a really interesting new release from Glossier. I think this is the first thing they've done since the world changed and Glossier stopped being a direct-to-consumer brand and started selling in Sephora. This is a liquid lipstick, which is new for them, but it's unclear whether it's one of those liquid lipsticks that totally dries down. It does say liquid #lipstick. In the imagery, it looks a little bit like it could be a lip mousse. You know, one of those like pigmented but soft formulas that doesn't totally dry down. down. It's impossible to say just looking at this listing, but you know, Glossier does a pretty good job with their makeup. I have a video from back in the day that's like 30 Glossier products in 30 minutes or something, reviewing everything I've ever tried from them. I find it pretty hit and miss. Everything's either a yes or a no, kind of. And this intrigues me. The shades also look really pretty. The packaging looks really pretty. I don't know, given that I've reviewed so much Glossier on my channel in the past, maybe I'll pick one up for review in May as well. But I have so many lovely lipsticks that me thinking I might do that isn't really coming from a place of being like, oh, I have to try this new formula. It's like, I would rather just keep wearing my lipsticks from Merit and Gucci, like my absolute favorites through the summer, than get a whole bunch more. So maybe you can let me know in the comments if this is of interest to you. Like, are we still curious about what Glossier is doing? Let me know. ColourPop again, making it into new makeup hot takes twice in 1 week, which is not what they usually do. But this I definitely feel like is worth mentioning. The Chrome liquid eyeshadows from ColourPop. They're duochrome or multi-chrome, not just duochrome, they're multi-chromes. This is like the ColourPop version of the Danessa Myricks Twin Flames. It's really, I feel like, the moment that indie vibes, multi-chrome magic, like this thing that's been going on for years in the indie makeup community and that indie brands have been doing and redoing and perfecting for years. And they've always been the only source for this kind of thing, right? It started tiptoeing into the mainstream a little bit with Danessa Myricks, but Danessa Myricks, after all, is still an independent brand, right? She's like been doing her own thing for a long time. She's a makeup artist. And then only over the past, was it like within the past 2 or 3 years that she got picked up by Sephora? So there have been these little inklings, like these little twinklings of multi-chrome making its way into the mainstream. Natasha Denona also did a palette that had one and maybe some liquids. But for ColourPop to be full on releasing multi-chrome liquid eyeshadows, it feels like it's happened. You know what I mean? It feels like multi-chromes have arrived fully all over the scene because it's ColourPop. But at the same time, I feel like the really passionate interest in multi-chromes, they've missed the boat, like the tail end of the boat by maybe 6 months. Maybe that's just me. Maybe a lot of people are out there still with a passionate interest. But given that ColourPop develops things so quickly and turns them around so quickly, I wonder when they started doing this. Or maybe it took them a long time to get the formula right, but it seems like if they'd done it last year, it maybe would have generated more interest. I'm very curious about how good they are, though. Like how strong the flip is, if they even hold a candle to the indie multi-chromes, if they even remotely do that. Because in the swatch picture on here, they just look like straight metallics, but it's very, very hard to capture an actual multi-chrome or like a really strong duochrome on camera. So I'll follow the future career of this launch with a little bit of interest. Tom Ford liquid lipsticks. I'm just throwing this up here because a lot of brands are releasing liquid lipsticks and it's interesting. I think it was several months ago, New Makeup Hot Takes, I saw a liquid, or maybe it was a number of brands releasing liquid lipsticks. Maybe it wasn't just one. But at that time, it felt really out of the blue to me. And I was like, who asked for this? Like, why do we want liquid lipsticks? I was really confused. It felt like it had sort of come out of the blue. It felt like a throwback to me to something that nobody wanted to come back. And you in the comments were all really incisive and helped me understand it. 2 things. You all said many things about why you thought liquid lipsticks were coming back, and there were 2 main threads that emerged. So a bunch of you were like, it's because of masks. It's because we've become this masked world. And so people want to wear a lipstick that is permanent for the day and they can put a mask on and take it off and it's not going to smudge lipstick, which totally makes sense. Like, I get it. So if that weren't enough, a whole bunch of others of you, a whole other bunch of you, many of you, the rest of you who commented on this, said that you felt like enough time had passed, that there was like a new generation of makeup lovers, like the Gen Z makeup lovers didn't experience liquid lipsticks first time around because they were still in their cots. And so the brands are like coming out with liquid lipsticks to wow these young makeup wearers because they haven't yet experienced the magic, I think one of you said. And that also makes sense to me. I'm not particularly gung-ho about liquid lipstick, not even with the masks, not even with mask culture. But because I had that experience of being like, why are these liquid lipsticks being released? And then being like, oh, now I understand. I've just been taking note as more and more brands have come out with them. And it seems like it wasn't just a flash in the pan. It seems like we're entering a new era of liquid lipsticks and everyone is going to hop on the train. I mean, you see Tom Ford hopping on a train like this, you're like, oh yeah, it's happening. Maybe it's just the advertising, but this Fenty Gloss Bomb heat has got me. I don't know what it is. I had some gloss bombs back in the day when they were first released. I really love the formula. I talked about it recently in one of my drugstore makeup videos, the drugstore dupes. I tried a lipstick that was, I think, trying to dupe Gloss Bomb, and the formula was not at all the same. And I described the Gloss Bomb formula as having this kind of oily, watery slickness, but still being really rich and present on the lips. And even just talking about describing it, I was like, oh man, it was such a good gloss formula. And it's been a really long time since I had one. And now here she comes with Clear Hybrid Lip Gloss and Plumper. So it's clear, and I love clear gloss. I mean, I'm wearing a clear, this is like a lip treatment, but I'm wearing a clear gloss thing today on my lips. And it's because I just dyed my eyebrows and they're really quite a lot. And I also put eye makeup on to balance them out. And so there's just so much going on up here that I like did the bare minimum down here. And so for me, that means a clear gloss. And that happens to me a lot. You know, there are many days on which I get to the lips portion of my face and I'm like, clear gloss. Clear gloss, everybody. So the prospect of a clear gloss bomb, which is the formula I already love, also plumping, it's a fine one. It's a fine prospect. However, it's $26. Wasn't the gloss bomb like $18 before? Wasn't it like a less than $20 gloss? Does plumping cost almost an additional $10? A half again as much on top of the price? Is that how much we're paying for plumping over here these days? I'm a little bit intrigued by Thread Beauty, a Black-owned, woman-led beauty brand that just launched at Target with some complexion products. You know, just complexion is hard for me. Everything's really saturated. I'm a desaturated person. It looks like the lightest shade in these complexion ranges is extremely saturated yellow, and I just don't think that it would work for me. It's funny, it's one of these situations where all of the shades that are swatched on the lightest of the models are way, way too saturated for that model's skin tone. So you look at it and you're like, well, which one would the model wear? Because like they don't, none of them match. On the other three arms, there's at least one that sort of starts to blend in. You can kind of tell which color that model would wear. But on the lightest arm, you're like, there's nothing. So it looks like yet another complexion brand that has done that thing where they just have really oversaturated at least the lightest shades. And that cools my interest a little bit. But it's exciting to see a brand like this launching in Target. Especially, it's like affordable. It's a drugstore priced, complexion oriented brand that's Black owned. Love to see it. Rare Beauty, which I still have never tried anything from. I've had it on my list forever. Years keep passing and I keep just not reviewing Rare Beauty. They've released another thing that makes me want to try it. It's the Soft Pinch Tinted Lip Oil. You know, I love a lip oil. There's one of these shades that looks really pretty. It's the shade Honesty, the most neutral, nudie one. It looks pretty pigmented though. It looks pretty pigmented for something that's supposed to be like a slathered on lip oil. I don't know. I'm kind of interested in the product, but it's more just that it reminded me yet again that I haven't reviewed Rare Beauty. Maybe I should just do it. Oh, another thing I'm getting a lot of review requests for, the Halo Glow Beauty Wand from e.l.f. So I did all of those drugstore videos. I mean, I did a couple of drugstore videos a couple of weeks ago. That was most of my review content in April. And especially in the one where I was talking about drugstore dupes, a bunch of people were like, e.l.f. just released all of these products that are dupes for the Charlotte Tilbury Hollywood Spotlight wands and blushes and stuff like that. There's like a contour one, there's a blush one, there's a glowy one. And oh my gosh, if these had been in the Ulta that I was in when I was looking for stuff to review, I would totally have gotten them. And I'm interested enough, and you all seem interested enough that it kind of makes me want to do a dedicated video. I think my hot take from a more neutral position, like not thinking about this as a reviewer, my hot take is just that e.l.f. is kind of hit or miss. I feel like the whole drugstore is a little bit hit or miss, you know? And in my experience with e.l.f., when they miss, they really miss. Like the recent contour palette thing that I tried to review, and it was just like, I tried and tried. It was really a no. But when they hit it, it's amazing. And the prices are so low. So if you can sort through e.l.f. and find a couple of things that are really, really great for you, it's really great makeup at really low prices. So at the very least, I'm curious to see what other people say about this, you know? I wonder, and maybe people are already reviewing it and I just haven't seen it yet, but I feel like either it's gonna be, well, there are gonna be three things. 2 out of 3 of the following is what we'll see. 1, there's gonna be a lot of influencers who are like, OMG, e.l.f. is making Hollywood Spotlight wands. It's so exciting. Look at these. They're so beautiful. Swatches, hype, you know, without actually really giving any information about whether the product is good or not, just like advertising it, you know? So that's definitely gonna happen. And then I feel like one of two other things is gonna happen. Either a bunch of people are gonna be like, wow, they really nailed the formulas. These are just as good as Charlotte Tilbury. It's so exciting that we have these. Or they're gonna be like, they look the same, but they aren't, you know? Like they're dressed up to be Hollywood Spotlight, but they're not nearly as good of makeup as that. So I'm curious. The first thing I'll ignore. The other two things, I'm kind of curious to know which the dominating thread will be. And who knows, maybe I'll be one of the ones contributing to the stream of available information. Okay, Merit, a brand that I love, you know. Merit Lip Oil, the Slick Gelee Sheer Tinted Lip Oil. So I do kind of have a hot take about this. Part of me is like, oh, I want to try it because I love Merit and I think everything they do is great, you know. So my immediate reaction is like, oh my gosh, wow, yeah, I want to try it. And then I was like, but which color? Because there's like a bright peach, a bright pink, a bright red, and a bright berry. And I'm like, where's the brown? Where's the taupe, you know? But Merit often does this. They'll launch an initial edit of colors of their new product and they'll all be kind of bright. And then they'll come through with the neutrals, the more nuanced tones later. I feel like they did that with the shade Slick and they also did that with the blush, the Flesh Balm. So that was my first hot take. And then my second hot take is like, this looks so similar to me to the shade Slick. Isn't that called a lip oil? Shade Slick tinted lip oil? I'm sure it's different. And so I'm a little bit curious to see what it's like in person because I'm like, what's the difference between this and the shade Slick tinted lip oil, which is such a great product. I really, really, really love that product from Merit. So it's like, how could they have improved on that? Like, what is it about this product that looks very similar in packaging? Swatches look similar. The claims look similar. Like everything about it looks similar. What is it about this that could possibly be like an alternative, like different enough from the shade Slick, the existing one, that it was worth also releasing it? It's hard to imagine what that would be. And that's kind of my hot take. Juvia's Place has released these beautiful liquid blushes. And, you know, there are some on the pale side of the range that look intriguingly white-based, like pale pink. Nothing that is on the brown side of the color spectrum that has that creamy paleness, but some of the pinks look like quite desaturated, so that intrigues me. And all of the shades look very beautiful. I don't know, I haven't seen any new release from Juvia's Place in a long time that has made me sit up and take notice. But when I was in the Ulta looking for stuff to review, the Juvia's Place display really caught my eye. They have some really interesting lip colors. And I recently did review one of those lip colors in that video where I was trying to find a dupe for Gone Greige. So Juvia's Place just kind of crept back onto my radar a little bit. A buildable, radiant, pigmented, and blendable formulation to accent your natural features. Yeah, I'm curious about this. I'm curious about this Juvia's Place liquid blush formula. As a consumer though, again, getting back to kind of the core thread, this is just one in a vast sea of liquid blushes. And there are so many good ones. There's so many out there and there are so many good ones. So if you already have like a Rare Beauty soft pinch liquid blush or something, which again, I've never tried. I'm just assuming because a lot of people like that a lot. Like, don't dupe yourself. You know what I mean? Don't dupe your collection. I'm glad that there are more of these kinds of things coming onto the market. I'm glad that there are more options, like more things from different brands and a bunch of different colors. But it is also the kind of thing that you kind of only need one of. You know what I mean? Once you have one and it's in a color that's great for you, a really good creamy liquid blush is just gonna read as well as the next really good creamy liquid blush once it's on your face. I feel similarly about powder blushes, like the powder blushes that are coming out. I skipped even mentioning the, what were they? The Armani ones, Luminous Silk Glow blushes, partly because the shade range doesn't intrigue me that much, but also because it's just a lot of really pretty powder blushes are coming out, like a lot of really pretty compacts, you know? And it's just, I have one or two that work for me. So as tempting as they all look, as beautiful as they all are as makeup, the thing that makes sense for me is to just keep using the ones that I have that are really, really versatile and that work well. But I had to talk about this UOMA release because they're just so pretty. The split pans, a velvety powder duo with a satin matte on one side and luminous shimmer on the other. It's kind of like a throwback for me. Like it reminds me of those old Natasha Denona split pan blushes. It just reminds me of like juicily covetable classic makeup from when I was sort of first getting into makeup or first getting into YouTube. And it's sweet to see that, especially because it reminds me of that, but the colors are so lovely, like so nuanced, designed so that there are a couple of colors, at least in the range, that will work for anyone. There's just a lot more earthiness, a lot more of that kind of creamy brown pigment mixed in color-wise to all of these shades. So the whole range, just as a range, as a release, and the photography of it and all of that, I find very attractive. Again, not something that I'm going to rush out and buy for myself because of all of the aforementioned reasons, but just so pretty. And I wanted to kind of give it an honorable mention. And I think that that's going to be it for today. There are a lot of relatively interesting releases, pretty looking things that I might have had a little bit of a hot take on, like the Armani blushes that I just told you that I didn't mention. You know, there's just a lot. It feels like 3 times as much makeup has been released since I last filmed one of these as was released between the last one and the one before. It just feels like the market's heating up. And it's probably because the seasons are changing. And I feel like that's a time when people tend to pull out their wallets. You know, everyone's like, new season, new me, new blush, new highlight, new mascara or whatever. So I've been feeling a little bit that instinct, you know, I've been feeling a little bit of that craving. And without being too much of a killjoy, I guess the last thing I'll say in this video is if that's you as well, just make sure that that behavior, if you're tempted to display it, aligns with what makes sense for you financially. And in terms of like the amount of stuff you actually want to be collecting. When I'm getting an itch like that, the first thing I do is just go back to my old makeup and like dig stuff out of the back of the drawers that I haven't worn in a long time. And it'll often feel fresh and exciting to me. Like if it slipped to the back of the drawer when I rediscover it, it's like, oh yeah, everything old is new again. And that usually helps to quell the urge. I'm happy that spring is in the air. I'm glad that there's a bit of a sense of change and freshness. It's really fun. It doesn't mean that you have to spend a bunch of money. Thank you so much for watching this episode of New Makeup Hot Takes. I hope you enjoyed it. If you aren't subscribed, I hope you'll subscribe. Thank you all so much for always commenting and liking my videos. I really appreciate you for being here, and I hope that all of you are taking extra good care of yourselves so that you can be the most effective versions of yourselves as you do your work in the world.